detection tool recently identified a person of color as a prime suspect in a theft that happened in Louisiana. He was apprehended in 3 states and he was 7 hours away from the crime scene. He spent nearly 1 week in jail. But here's the catch. The man has never even been to Louisiana in his entire life. I'm Raksha Rajesh.
And I'm Janvi Nagrali, and today we're going to discuss the threat to human rights in the age of artificial intelligence. So Raksha, before we dive into our conversation about AI bias, why don't we tell our audience about how AI actually works?
Yeah, Janvi, good point. So basically, AI is trained to learn patterns in data. But before I get into that, we need to know that data by itself is biased on its own. And why am I saying that? Let me make you understand by a simple example. Suppose we have to examine the height of all the teenagers living in India. We cannot take all the teenagers and make them come in a room and measure all of their heights individually. That'd be kind of crazy. So what we would do is that we would rather take a smaller population, like individuals, right, like a subset, and then we'd measure their heights and use that as data, right, to determine what is the average height for teenagers across India. So this is how I'm saying that data is biased, right? Because it's not something that can be applicable to the whole population. Because who conducts these studies? Where are these studies conducted? So all these questions do arise. So that's what when I say that. So now what AI does is that it takes this data and it learns the patterns in them. And that's how there is a bias that is being developed. And I think, John, we could explain it a little bit more.
Thank you, Raksha. That was a great way of describing how data is biased in the first place. Now let's talk about how AI actually comes into the picture, right? Now, as you guys know, it's the 21st century and AI has been used to automate many tasks across the spectrum. It's been used in law enforcement agencies, it's been used in recruitment, healthcare, you name it, AI has automated menial processes. While it's certainly made the lives of people easier, it definitely comes with its own pitfalls, right? Let's take the example of the tech giant Amazon, right? Now, everyone knows Amazon has millions of employees working across the world. Is it possible for recruiters to screen through every single resume and get candidates selected for a role? No, right? That's where recruitment tech comes in, where these applications essentially scan resumes and also identify ethnicities of a person, their skill set, etc., and send it across to recruiters, right? Now, Amazon had this DEI initiative, that is diversity, equity, and inclusion, where they essentially wanted to recruit more diverse employees for a particular role, and they employed a recruitment tech for the same. However, it was found that this brought no results because there was very little to no improvement in their diversity recruiting efforts. But why is that? If AI is started to be something that can execute tasks seamlessly, how is it not able to identify the ethnicities of employees or prospective candidates?
Okay, so now our audience knows a little bit about data and about AI and how AI is used, right? So let's demonstrate this with an example. Johnny?
Well, one example that particularly comes to mind is recruitment, right? Now, you've all seen big companies like Amazon, Facebook, Google, etc., where millions of employees are employed across the world. But does it mean that recruiters have the time to just screen through every single application?
That's so true. I don't think they can sit with... And the amount of people applying also would be massive.
Exactly. Or even though there's only one role that can be filled, right?
Yeah.
So how do you go about automating that part? Well, that's where recruitment automation comes in. So recruitment automation essentially is another AI tool where AI uses its ability to scan profiles and resumes where they identify ethnicities, their skill sets, whatnot, and they send this profile to the recruiter, right? So Amazon essentially had this initiative where they wanted to increase diversity in their workforce, right? They wanted more people of color to be employed within the APAC region or Australia, Europe, you name it.
I think that's also a really good movement that is happening across the world to make sure that people of color are being included, given that special kind of importance as well. I'm not going to label it as special importance, but for a long time we know that people of color have always been at the backer end comparative to the others. So I think in that front, I think it's great that companies want to do that, but the way that they're trying to do it is also like a little bit flawed.
Yeah,
in my
so
opinion.
do you really think that automation in itself can scan a person's ethnicity? Do you actually think that these initiatives, when run through AI, have any fruition or any success?
I mean, of course, when you send a profile or a resume to the AI algorithm, it's not like it's going to identify your race and be like, okay, you're that, right? That's what we all think.
That's
right?
true.
That's what we all think. But what happened with Amazon is that this AI algorithm was, in fact, it backfired basically.
Essentially, like while the goal was to get more people of color into it, there was still like a higher volume of Caucasian applicants who were selected, which again defeats the purpose of diversity, right? If you want to build diversity in the workforce, I don't think AI would be the right way to go in this case.
Yeah, right. So basically, in the end, they failed at their diversity inclusion process. So, but this is what is happening, not just with Amazon, but in many parts of the world and across many industries. AI algorithms are being implemented in healthcare, in law enforcement, and as Janvi mentioned, recruitment processes. What else, Janvi?
So there are many areas where AI is essentially implemented. Did you know that people actually use AI to generate artwork?
Oh yeah, that's something that is happening right now, right? Like it's a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very controversial because one, it takes away this the uniqueness of an artist, right? Also takes away the value and the hard work that they bring because in AI and this AI can just generate an artwork in like seconds. So I think it really but for a consumer it seems to be more easier because they can just give out their picture, whatever they want, and the AI can automatically generate it.
Well, for instance, AI does give you like a Disney-fied version of how you look. Now, let's be real. Everyone loves like an embellished, animated version of yourselves. I for sure wouldn't have like a double chin or a belly in mine. But there again, with AI, there are downsides. In fact, just recently in India, an artist was accused of using AI to generate wedding pictures for people across the states. But the pictures that came out, well, they were pretty derogatory to say the least.
Well, could you just tell me like a little bit like what you mean by derogatory when you say this example?
I think a prime example that came to my mind, or the first thing that I saw, was that Biharis were effectively described as, very dark in color or very poor, in fact, right? Which is a very common Indian stereotype that we face. Another instance was where a Gujarati couple was seen like decked with gold, but they were also like insanely heavyweight. Now, that's an unfair stereotype, right? Do all Gujaratis look like that? Do all Biharis look like that? No chance. But the system in itself has inherited that bias and has generated such artwork. How does the machine know? That's the question.
Yeah, that brings us to who do we think there's a person behind it? Is it a group of people behind it? I don't think that's the question that we should actually ask ourselves. We should ask ourselves as to how the AI is learning this bias rather than saying that the people are the ones that are behind it, rather than how is this algorithm able to pick up on racism? Because let's be honest, human beings are we are born with a clean slate, but as we grow we do develop biases. It's part of our culture or the way that we grow up. There are inherent biases, right?
Yeah, that's an excellent point to bring forth, Raksha. Like humans are definitely biased. Now there are people right among universities, in the workplace, you name it. There will be bias. We're not trying to virtue signal over here, guys. We're definitely not going to say that, oh no, we're perfect. We do not see race. We do not see gender. Of course, a little bit of stereotype exists in all of us. That's where most of these comedians make jokes. That's how people's mind inherently works. That's why even recruiters, before AI came into the picture, right, they used to just shun away married women, saying that, oh, you have kids, so we are not going to employ you. Or let's say when you want to consider someone for a promotion, a man versus a woman, a man is always prioritized. Now AI was never in the picture, but humans had always had this kind of bias, right?
Yeah. So that brings us to, okay, but an AI is not a person. It's not a human being. So why does it have a bias? Where is it getting these negative human qualities from? right? And is it because of the flaw in the data itself, that it's however it's trained, or what are the questions should we be asking?
The real question is the humans that design such artificial intelligence software, right? Is it the fact that they are interpreting their own biases when inputting such data, or is machine learning a flawed concept where the machine in itself is generating its own perceptions in a wrong way? Now that definitely seems like some dystopian sci-fi stuff, but is it too far from reality?
I think that's just the tip of the iceberg, to be honest.
True, absolutely.
Well, so now that we've, said all of these important things, I think one thing that we need to really tell our audience is that there's a huge distinction between human intelligence, and I think we really confuse ourselves that AI is supposed to be intelligent. It is intelligent, but the whole purpose of it is to make our lives more efficient. It helps us make these impartial decisions so that we can save a lot of time. That is the whole purpose of having AI, right?
That's true. You can see AI not just used across big industries. It's literally used in our day-to-day lives. Every morning we wake up, we check our phone, boom, we use face unlock. That is AI right there.
Yeah, and also dating apps, right?
Oh yes, definitely. Dating apps, all you do is set your preferences. So you want a 6-foot guy who is of a particular ethnicity, for sure. Input that data, you get the match. But if that really works, well, that's the story for another episode.
Yeah. So but even though it's used in everyday life, I think that really demonstrates that, okay, this has made our lives much more easier, and we cannot expect it to make decisions like how a human being does. Maybe eventually it will get there, but right now I think it's used to make our lives more simple and more efficient.
True. I mean, on one hand, because we are so amazed, starstruck by the idea that AI is making our life simpler, we often tend to overlook the flaws, right, of AI as a whole. For instance, AI, the way AI is used in healthcare, it can actually be detrimental to a person's health altogether. In fact, there was this study conducted in 2019 across US hospitals, right, where it was nearly seen that Caucasian people were favored medical treatment when compared to people of color. I mean, that's almost barbaric, in fact. However, race wasn't the only factor here, Raksha, because the thing is, it was also noticed that Caucasian people incurred way more healthcare costs than compared to their people of color, right? So, but why is it that just because they incurred more costs, does that mean that they're favorable to more better medical care than their counterparts?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that you actually brought that up. I even saw, there was this Apple Pay card issue, if I'm saying correctly, that a man, he had filed for his card in a certain amount of credits, and he had gotten it 20 times more than his wife, which was such a weird decision because it not only happened to him, but it also happened to other women as well. So that brings us to the question: just because you're married or you're a woman, can you be denied of a certain amount of credit? Where exactly is it picking? Where exactly is AI picking all of this up from? So I think it's because, not just I think, it's a study. I think that there's a lot of cognitive bias involved. This cognitive bias comes from designers themselves, right? Individuals who design the AI algorithm, and also the way the data is trained, right, Janvi? So I think part of it lies in data itself, what is the quality of data, and how this AI is learning is part of the issue. So I think it's a lack of the quality and also this cognitive bias that makes AI behave this way.
Absolutely. So the question that comes in here is that whom do we hold accountable for such biases? Can we actually hold the designers who input the data? Shall we input the people who conducted the study? Or shall we hold accountable the agencies or the industries themselves who are implementing this tech?
But that's the thing, right? These biases are not intentional. Nobody's doing this on purpose. Because the whole thing is that people want to solve these things, right? Nobody is employing AI algorithms to make sure that this bias continues. It's to make sure it's to increase all. It's basically, I think when Amazon employed that AI algorithm, they never thought that it would backfire on them, right? They wanted it to work out for them. So I definitely don't think it's something that is intentional that is happening. It's the quality of data and these data sets, how exactly this AI is being trained.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do agree about your point, like with respect to it not being intentional, but I still believe there has to be like a certain level of accountability that needs to be maintained, right? Like we need to hold people responsible for this AI bias. Otherwise, it will keep like it'll continually keep going on, and this would be detrimental to people downright. Like if they're not able to access healthcare, that's a basic fundamental right. If they're not able to access like financial resources solely because of their gender, or as we mentioned, like professional opportunities, like what happened in Amazon. So it's like it's not their fault. There needs to be someone who is held accountable, or there needs to be someone who can address these issues and rectify them at the earliest.
I like the fact that you brought up a framework. What do you like? I don't want to dive in too much about the framework, but what do you think how would we solve this AI bias with a framework? Would it be like a legal framework?
It's interesting that you brought up the framework concept, right? Because it's already been implemented across like Europe and Australia, for instance. Like they do have their own like administrative framework in place. But here's the thing, just like with most legal frameworks, there are their loopholes, right? So what we really need here is like an airtight regulatory platform where we can understand and administrate accordingly how AI is being implemented and who is exactly going to be held accountable and how to best eliminate, if not entirely, but at least to a large, like let's say 80 to 90%, like eliminate AI bias as a whole, right? Which would again be beneficial to people across the world and will also like not be violative of human rights.
Right, right. But right now, like I think this is something that would take years to also develop. But I think like right now, what we can do is to work diligently and really understand the concept of fairness as a whole, right? What exactly is fair? And also the quality of data being produced. So I think before putting these systems out in the world, I think it really needs to be tested. Because and also like what John B mentioned about the framework and accountability, there really needs to be accountability, right? Because right now we have nobody to pinpoint and say, okay, that is the designer's fault. Okay, no, it is because of the data sets. We cannot say anything. We can just draw that presumption, but say that, okay, yeah, this happened, right? But I think right now we can just work diligently.
Absolutely. I think like ultimately it's in our hands to improve said processes, and we can leave the setting up a governing body to the governments itself, right? But on an individual level, I definitely feel like AI bias can be rectified provided that, we allocate the right resources to it or the right workforce to it as well.
Will AI ever be unbiased? I think that is a yes or a no for me, because I think AI is as good as the quality of data it receives. So until data becomes impartial, right, I don't think we would have like a definitive yes. So for me, I'm more of like a yes or a no. It could happen, maybe it could happen, but it also cannot happen.
Yeah, that's a fair point, right? So as you guys know, that's our input on AI and bias as a whole, right? So we want to know from you though, like, do you really think that AI can truly ever be unbiased? Do you ever think that there can be like a new change that can be brought forth that can improve AI processes significantly and can reduce bias as a whole? So what do you guys think?
Yeah, write to us at our email if you have any questions, or if you have a solution. We just like know what your point of view is, or even feedback would be great.
Yeah, feedback would definitely be great. Tell us what you thought about the video. Tell us what you thought about us interacting as a whole. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below.
Yeah, but before we sign off, we want to say something special. For our next episode, we have a very interesting guest coming and joining us.
Well, this interesting guest has a lot to her CV. She definitely has a lot of tenets, and she's an expert in multiple disciplines of law. Who is she? Well, that's something you're gonna have to stay tuned for.
Yeah, but is it AI related? Yes.
Maybe, maybe not. We'll find out.
I said yes.
No, just say no.
Be sure to check out our Instagram page.
You can find us at rcl.tpc. So see you soon.